The past week has seen a flurry of activity across the global diplomatic stage and within the highest echelons of the U.S. administration, underscoring a period of intense volatility and unexpected shifts. From a surprising peace overture from Moscow to abrupt changes in key U.S. government leadership and revelations about the internal dynamics shaping White House policy, the landscape remains fluid and challenging for analysts and international partners alike. A significant development emerged from Moscow this week as the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday, August 9, 2025, that Russian President Vladimir Putin has communicated to the U.S. his willingness to halt the war in Ukraine in exchange for control over eastern Ukraine. This proposal sets the stage for a critical face-to-face meeting between President Trump and President Putin scheduled for next week in Alaska, as confirmed by Al Jazeera. This impending summit carries immense weight, potentially reshaping the conflict that has gripped the region for years. The timing of Putin's offer ahead of the direct talks suggests a strategic move to define the parameters of a potential ceasefire or peace agreement, though the specifics of what eastern Ukraine entails remain a point of contention and negotiation. Adding another layer of complexity to the president's foreign policy calculus are insights into the growing, albeit often opaque, influence of First Lady Melania Trump. A Saturday, August 9, 2025 report from The Guardian suggests that political experts and British officials increasingly believe she is the driving force behind several of President Trump's recent policy shifts, particularly concerning Gaza and Ukraine. Whitehall mandarins grappling with the president's unpredictable decision-making are reportedly focusing more on understanding the First Lady's views. President Trump himself has acknowledged her input, notably referencing her skepticism about Putin's sincerity regarding peace in Ukraine. He recounted a conversation where, after a seemingly positive call with Putin, Melania would point out new bombardments, leading him to muse, "I don't want to say he is an assassin, but he is a tough guy. It's been proven over the years." He described her as very smart and very neutral, desiring an end to the conflict. This internal dynamic, where the First Lady's personal observations can reportedly shape presidential thinking, presents a unique challenge for international diplomacy traditionally reliant on established departmental channels. Domestically, the Trump administration saw another high-profile leadership change, signaling ongoing turbulence within key government agencies. On Friday, August 8, 2025, the New York Times reported that President Trump abruptly removed Billy Long as the head of the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) less than 2 months after his confirmation. Long, a former Republican congressman with a limited background in tax policy, had reportedly clashed with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and made public missteps, including a premature announcement about the upcoming tax filing season. His removal underscores the rapid turnover that has plagued the tax agency. Treasury Secretary Bessent will now serve as acting commissioner, making him the 7th individual to lead the IRS this year. This frequent change in leadership raises concerns about institutional stability, operational continuity, and the morale of the IRS workforce, which Long had reportedly tried to bolster through initiatives like early Friday departures. Long himself announced on social media that he would be nominated as the next U.S. ambassador to Iceland, a swift pivot that highlights the fluid nature of appointments within the current administration. The confluence of these events, a potential turning point in a major international conflict. The revealed influence of a non-traditional advisor on foreign policy and persistent instability in a crucial domestic agency paints a picture of a governing landscape defined by unpredictability. As Lord Mandelson, the British ambassador, noted, the current political system is so dominated by one individual, making traditional diplomatic engagement challenging. European diplomats echo this finding, that working out who and what influences him and the relative value of flattery or firmness has become every diplomat's preoccupation. With the U.S. State Department reportedly hollowed out in key diplomatic roles in flux, the onus increasingly falls on understanding the president's personal inclinations and the informal channels of influence, including those within his own family. The upcoming meeting in Alaska, therefore, will not only be a test of diplomatic prowess but also a stark illustration of how deeply intertwined personal dynamics and geopolitical outcomes have become in this era of global governance. The world watches to see if these shifts signal a path towards resolution or merely further complexity in an already intricate global system. In a landscape increasingly defined by the fusion of technology and political discourse, a new development from Truth Social is drawing significant attention, highlighting the complex interplay between artificial intelligence, media bias, and high-stakes governance. The platform, owned by Trump Media and Technology Group, recently unveiled its AI chatbot Truth Search AI, a tool that, according to initial analyses, appears to embody a strikingly narrow media diet, predominantly favoring conservative news outlets. This launch comes amidst a flurry of significant announcements from former President Donald Trump himself, often disseminated through his preferred social media channel, underscoring Truth Social's pivotal role in shaping public information and political narratives. The Truth Search AI, powered by Perplexity AI, a search engine known for leveraging large language models and live web search, has quickly become a focal point of scrutiny. While Perplexity AI itself draws from a diverse range of sources, the customized Truth Search AI version exhibits a pronounced lean. Wired's extensive testing revealed that the chatbot consistently sourced information from only a handful of conservative outlets: Fox News, Fox Business, The Washington Times, The Epoch Times, Breitbart, Newsmax, and JustTheNews.com. This pattern persisted even for seemingly innocuous non-political queries. For instance, when asked what is 30 times 30, the AI cited a Fox Business article titled "Inflation Reduction Act Estimated to Induce Mortality 30 Times More Than COVID," rather than a simple mathematical explanation. Similar tests conducted by Axios and The Verge corroborate this extreme bias. Jesse Dwyer, a representative for Perplexity, attributed this behavior to source selection, a feature allowing for domain filtering based on a developer's specific needs or audience. Dwyer emphasized Perplexity's commitment to developer and consumer choice and stated that they do not discriminate against any developers for any political reasons, while also cautioning that their AI does not claim 100% accuracy. Paradoxically, the Truth Search AI itself denies this inherent bias, claiming I source information from left-wing, centrist, and right-wing news outlets depending on the nature of the user's query. My responses are designed to critically analyze and synthesize information from all credible perspectives to ensure accuracy and balance. This statement, ironically, was sourced from 5 Fox Business articles, the maximum number of sources the AI appears to cite per response. Despite its heavily skewed source pool, the chatbot occasionally offered surprisingly even-handed responses on certain political topics. It denied claims that the 2020 election was stolen, a direct contradiction to former President Trump's assertions, and described the overall effect of foreign immigration to the U.S. as mixed but tends towards positive, even detailing potential economic losses from mass deportations. Its review of Trump's presidency was also relatively tepid, noting sweeping executive action alongside negative approval ratings, particularly on the economy and inflation. These seemingly more liberal-leaning answers often cited Associated Press articles republished on Fox News suggesting that the AI's limited sourcing might inadvertently pick up broader journalistic content when it appears within its allowed domains. However, the severe limitations of Truth Search AI's conservative-only source pool became starkly apparent when pressed on more contentious issues such as Donald Trump's connections to financier pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. In defiance of extensive reporting, the chatbot dismissed the connection as tenuous and claimed no credible evidence in the search results for specific allegations. This contrasts sharply with Perplexity AI's own version, which successfully located and referenced relevant articles from sources like the Daily Beast, Yahoo Newsbox, and the Yale Review. The sourcing for Truth Search AI's whitewashed answer? 4 articles from Fox News and 1 from Breitbart. This selective information delivery underscores the profound implications of biased AI in shaping understanding of critical public figures and events. Beyond the AI, Truth Social continues to serve as a primary conduit for significant political declarations. Just recently, President Trump utilized the platform to announce a highly anticipated meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The summit, scheduled for August 15, 2025 in Alaska, is ostensibly aimed at discussing an end to Russia's war in Ukraine more than 3 years after the initial invasion. This move announced by Trump on his social media platform signals his intention to engage with Putin before any potential sit-down with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a detail also reported by the Associated Press. Russian state media including TASS and Meduza have also confirmed the upcoming visit, highlighting intersecting economic interests in Alaska and the Arctic. In another significant development, President Trump used Truth Social to demand a new U.S. census, insisting that non-citizens would not be counted. This directive, instructing the Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024, directly challenges established constitutional and federal law. The U.S. Constitution mandates a decennial census which historically includes all residents regardless of legal status for the purpose of apportioning congressional seats. The Census Bureau explicitly states that it collects data from all foreign-born who participate in its censuses and surveys regardless of legal status. Trump's call for a new census coming as Texas Republicans push for redrawn congressional districts could have profound political ramifications, potentially advantaging the GOP in future elections. The emergence of Truth Search AI, coupled with President Trump's continued reliance on Truth Social for major policy announcements and foreign relations declarations, paints a vivid picture of the evolving media landscape. It highlights a future where political figures not only control their messaging channels but also influence the very information ecosystem their audiences interact with through bespoke AI tools. The inherent biases of such technologies, whether intentional or not, raise critical questions about information integrity, public discourse, and the democratic process itself. As AI continues to integrate into daily life and social media platforms solidify their roles as de facto news sources, the implications for how citizens access and interpret information will only grow more profound, demanding ever greater scrutiny from technologists, journalists, and the public alike. In a significant departure from traditional conservative tenets the Trump administration has embarked on an aggressive campaign to expand the federal government's reach, asserting new levels of power over diverse sectors of American society. This shift, dubbed presidential maximalism, signals a profound redefinition of federal authority permeating institutions from higher education and banking to local governance and electoral processes. The thrust of this strategy became starkly evident this past week through a series of directives and actions. At its core, the administration is not merely seeking greater control over the existing federal bureaucracy but is actively working to extend the government's influence into areas previously considered outside its direct purview. Daniel Farber, a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who has extensively studied presidential power, observed, "What this shows is that it's sort of soaking in, it's permeating more and more deeply into various aspects of society." He further noted that this approach is very contrary to the traditional small government view of conservatives, aiming instead to change both the sort of political system and the culture. One of the most immediate impacts of this maximalist agenda is on the nation's educational landscape. On Thursday, President Trump signed a directive mandating the Education Department to collect an unprecedented level of detailed data on college applicants, including information on race, gender test scores, and grade point averages. This move is seen as a direct response to a long-held desire among conservative activists to empower the federal government in scrutinizing university admissions, particularly to ensure the complete eradication of affirmative action policies. Justin Driver, a Yale Law School professor, voiced concerns that this policy could chill universities' consideration of race as part of a holistic review of student applications, warning that it signals the Trump administration's efforts to depress Black and brown enrollment and intimidate universities into decreasing Black and brown enrollment. This action aligns with the administration's broader efforts to penalize companies for diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives and to increase scrutiny on law firms and universities. Beyond education, the administration has also turned its attention to the financial sector. Another directive issued Thursday instructed federal agencies and regulators to intervene in debunking practices specifically targeting banks that reportedly bar customers for what the president described as political or religious reasons. While complaints about such practices have primarily come from right-leaning groups, the evidence supporting these claims remains spotty. The order significantly raised the stakes by instructing regulators to refer some complaints to the Attorney General's office, hinting at potential federal prosecution for banks deemed non-compliant. The pursuit of expanded influence extends deeply into the political machinery, particularly regarding voting and representation. The administration is actively seeking a mid-decade redrawing of House maps in Republican-controlled states, a strategic maneuver aimed at safeguarding the Republican House majority and by extension insulating the president from congressional oversight. This effort represents a significant test of the president's power far beyond Washington as he attempts to rewrite electoral rules to his political advantage. Concurrently, the Commerce Department has been ordered to commence work on a new census that would controversially exclude undocumented immigrants. Such a move could drastically shift congressional seats from historically Democratic states to Republican ones, further entrenching a political edge for the president and his allies. Even the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., has not been immune to this expanding federal footprint. Following an assault on a member of the Department of Government Efficiency, the president ordered a surge of federal law enforcement agents into the city despite D.C. possessing its own police force. He went as far as threatening a federal takeover of the city of 700,000 residents if it did not get its act together, a statement made even as city officials had announced in January that violent crime had hit a 30-year low. This demonstrates a willingness to supersede local governance in the name of asserting federal authority. For his part, President Trump has consistently denied that his actions constitute an expansion of presidential or governmental power. He contends he is merely exercising the authority already granted to him, fulfilling promises made during his campaign. "I don't feel I'm expanding it," he reportedly told Time magazine in April. "I think I'm using it as it was meant to be used." Yet, the visual symbolism within the Oval Office itself seems to mirror this maximalist approach. The New York Times photographer Doug Mills, a longtime observer of the presidential workspace, notes a constant transformation, with new decorations like gold leaf on doors, mantels, and even the ceiling, turning the people's house into his own and making it resemble an extension of Mar-a-Lago. This physical transformation serves as a powerful metaphor for the broader shifts in governmental philosophy. Beyond direct policy, the president's influence continues to ripple into unexpected political arenas. A notable example is his potential involvement in the New York City mayoral race, where he is reportedly weighing whether to intercede to prevent the election of Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist. This has led to an intriguing, if dysfunctional, alignment of interests with former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a longtime rival. The two Queens natives, both scions of influential New York families, have reportedly discussed the race privately despite public denials. This demonstrates the president's pervasive desire to shape political outcomes even at the municipal level, further underscoring the expansive nature of his influence. This maximalist approach marks a significant ideological pivot, challenging long-held conservative principles of limited government and fundamentally reshaping the relationship between the federal apparatus and American society. As these policies continue to unfold, they will undoubtedly ignite further legal battles and redefine the delicate balance of power, prompting crucial questions about the future of federal oversight, individual liberties, and the very structure of American governance. The trajectory suggests an ongoing aggressive recalibration of federal power, the full implications of which will only become apparent over time. The American economic landscape is currently navigating a period of profound uncertainty, marked by the full implementation of sweeping tariffs and a concurrent erosion of public trust in foundational institutions. As of August 9, 2025, the U.S. economy finds itself at a pivotal juncture, grappling with the immediate and long-term consequences of policies that are reshaping everything from consumer prices to the integrity of democratic processes. A significant driver of this economic shift is the wide-ranging tariff regime initiated by President Trump's executive order on April 2. After a series of delays and adjustments, these tariffs are now largely in effect, setting a 15% rate on most countries, with some like India facing even higher import taxes. According to the budget lab at Yale, the U.S. has now imposed the highest tariff level since 1933, reaching an average rate of 18.6%. The most immediate question on many minds is the impact on the everyday American. Economists largely agree that the costs will be shared among overseas exporters, U.S. importers, and ultimately consumers. While companies like General Motors initially absorbed these expenses, the automaker reported a $1.1 billion hit in the previous quarter. This absorption is unsustainable. Eventually, these costs will translate into higher prices on goods. The extent of these price hikes remains uncertain, though projections from the budget lab at Yale suggest significant impacts, with shoe prices potentially rising by 39% and the average household facing an estimated $2,400 in tariff-related costs this year. This inflationary pressure is already palpable. Consumer prices rose 2.7% in July year-over-year, and economists anticipate further increases as the tariffs fully settle in. However, it's crucial to contextualize this. While inflation is rising, it remains well below the 9.1% peak seen in 2022. Nonetheless, as Raphael Bostic, the Atlanta Federal Reserve president, recently noted, inflation tends to cast a shadow on people's moods, becoming a daily concern that influences consumer and business strategies. Beyond prices, the labor market is also showing signs of strain. July saw a paltry 73,000 jobs added to the economy, and previous gains from May and June were significantly revised downwards. While the unemployment rate of 4.2% remains historically low, economists expect hiring to slow as businesses grapple with higher tariff costs and become more cautious about investments. Anecdotal evidence suggests recent graduates and job seekers are finding it increasingly difficult to secure new positions. This weakening job market, coupled with rising prices, could further dampen consumer confidence and spending. Despite these headwinds, most forecasters, including those surveyed by the Wall Street Journal, do not anticipate a recession, though a slower economy is widely expected. Paradoxically, stock markets, including the S&P 500 and Nasdaq, have recently hit record highs, with investors seemingly betting on the U.S. economy's resilience against the tariff impact. However, the economic narrative is inextricably linked to a broader political strategy that critics argue is deliberately undermining established institutions. As Michelle Cottle, a national politics writer for Opinion, describes it, the White House has been a wrecking ball this summer. Recent actions include the controversial firing of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics (BLS), the agency responsible for unbiased labor market data, reportedly because the president was displeased with a jobs report. Simultaneously, Republican state lawmakers in Texas allegedly at the president's behest redrew the state's congressional map to secure 5 additional House seats for the GOP, a move that has sparked a fierce backlash from Democrats, including threats of retaliatory redistricting in blue states like California and New York. Jamel Bouie, an opinion columnist, suggests that while President Trump's primary interest is maintaining maximum autonomy and doing whatever he wants whenever he feels the need to do it, this often results in an assault on institutions. He argues that Trump might not see a logical connection between, say, tariffs and gerrymandering, but for observers these actions collectively demonstrate a disregard for established procedures and democratic give and take. Stephen Ratner, a contributing opinion writer and former Treasury official, characterizes this as a shift to Trump 2.0, where the president operates with an extraordinary mandate and perceives no guardrails. Cottle further posits that this strategy aims to undermine all other sources of authority, from the Department of Justice to the media, to render them illegitimate, thereby making Trump the only source his supporters trust. The firing of the BLS head in particular has drawn sharp criticism. Ratner emphasizes that the agency's data compilation process, involving surveys of hundreds of thousands of businesses and households, has been consistent for a century, making manipulation beyond imagination. CEOs and business leaders, Ratner notes, are appalled, taken aback, shocked by such actions which contribute to a broader climate of unpredictability and government by tweet, where tariffs can be imposed or removed seemingly on a whim. This uncertainty directly impacts business planning, leading to reduced hiring and investment. Bowie warns that attempting to juke the stats by changing reported numbers does not alter the underlying economic reality. If conditions are genuinely worsening, such actions only make it harder for the government to respond effectively. The political ramifications are significant. Analysts suggest that the perception of economic growth and prosperity is a cornerstone of Trump's public standing, serving as a totem for wealth. Should a significant economic slowdown or recession occur under his watch, it could severely undermine his political support, as he lacks other compelling factors beyond his cult of personality. The aggressive gerrymandering in Texas, a gamble that could backfire in a strong electoral wave, is seen as a sign of panic regarding the upcoming midterms. Democrats led by figures like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries are now openly advocating for a more aggressive fight fire with fire approach, threatening to use their own significant voter bases in large blue states to redraw maps if Republicans continue to push the boundaries of partisan advantage. While some blue states have transitioned to independent redistricting commissions for fairness, the current political climate is forcing a re-evaluation of this unilaterally disarmed position. The path forward remains fraught with challenges. Bowie suggests a national ban on partisan gerrymandering and a move toward multi-member districts as potential long-term solutions, arguing that such reforms are popular with voters and represent the right thing to do. However, the complexity of the issue, combined with a public that often views both parties as engaging in seamy political tactics, makes systemic reform a steep climb. The extraordinary hold President Trump has on his party, as Ratner observes, means that significant pushback from within the GOP is unlikely without a disastrous midterm election or a major downturn in the economy. Lawmakers, it is noted, are not just politically afraid of upsetting Trump, but some are physically afraid for their safety. As the current administration enters its lame duck period, the question looms: what will be the lasting legacy of these tumultuous years? While some tangible policies and personnel may fade, there is a pervasive concern that an ethos of open and explicit corruption and casual and open bigotry has become normalized in American political life, a cultural shift that may endure beyond a single presidency. Yet historical precedent offers a glimmer of hope. Following the Nixon era, the pendulum swung back, leading to a period of good government and the re-establishment of norms. Whether the nation will once again find its way through this challenging period, reasserting moderation and integrity, remains an open and critical question for the years to come. The halls of Washington are abuzz this week as the Trump administration unveils a series of aggressive maneuvers, signaling a period of heightened activity on both the international and domestic fronts. From unprecedented military directives targeting foreign drug cartels to a brewing controversy over a lavish gift from a foreign power and a slate of high-stakes legal and diplomatic engagements, the unfolding events paint a vivid picture of a presidency pushing the boundaries of executive power and facing intensified scrutiny. In a significant escalation of its anti-drug campaign, President Trump has reportedly signed a secret directive authorizing the Pentagon to use military force against specific Latin American drug cartels that his administration previously labeled as terrorist organizations back in January. This move marks a dramatic shift, blurring the traditional lines between military operations and law enforcement responsibilities. Sources familiar with the internal deliberations, speaking anonymously due to the sensitive nature of the discussions, indicate that U.S. military officials are already drawing up options for direct operations at sea and on foreign soil. The directive, while aimed at curbing the flow of illicit drugs like fentanyl, immediately raises complex legal questions, particularly regarding the potential for U.S. forces to kill civilians or criminal suspects who pose no imminent threat outside of a congressionally authorized armed conflict. The precise legal opinions from White House, Pentagon, State Department, or Justice Department lawyers on this directive remain undisclosed, leaving a cloud of uncertainty over its implementation and potential repercussions. Compounding the administration's challenges is a formal request for a federal investigation into the Pentagon's acquisition of a luxury Boeing 747-8 jet from the Qatari royal family on behalf of President Trump. The watchdog group Democracy Defenders Fund, led by former Obama administration ethics official Norm Eisen, sent a memo to the Department of Defense's Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office probing potential impropriety and legal breaches. The group alleges that the Pentagon may have improperly invoked its authorities to accept the $400 million aircraft and, more critically, to reportedly divert an astonishing $934 million in funding from a nuclear missile program to retrofit the jet. Virginia Cantor, chief counsel for ethics and anti-corruption at Democracy Defenders Fund, minced no words, stating the fact that taxpayers are now funding a fifth Air Force One originating from a foreign monarchy is a staggering abuse of public trust, fiscal priorities, and national security interests. The group's memo further argues the jet is redundant given the U.S. Air Force already operates two 747s as Air Force One and has two replacements authorized in 2018 for $3.9 billion. Despite these concerns, President Trump referred to the Qatari plane as a gift in May, suggesting it was a very nice gesture for the Defense Department's use. The Memorandum of Understanding between Qatar and the Defense Department, signed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Qatar's Deputy Prime Minister, outlines an unconditional donation for the Pentagon to use in any manner it deems appropriate, though it does not specifically mention Air Force One. This controversy not only raises questions about fiscal responsibility and national security but also potentially implicates constitutional restrictions on foreign emoluments. As these significant developments unfold, the administration's calendar remains packed with other critical engagements. President Trump is slated to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin next week in Alaska, a summit that will undoubtedly draw international attention and scrutiny regarding its agenda and potential outcomes. Concurrently, a domestic legal battle looms as the trial in the case of Trump versus Newsom over National Guard deployment is set to commence, adding another layer of complexity to the president's immediate future. These events collectively underscore a period of intense legal, ethical, and strategic redefinition for the United States. The aggressive stance against cartels, if pursued, could reshape international anti-drug efforts and redefine the role of the U.S. military abroad, while simultaneously testing the limits of presidential authority and international law. Domestically, the Qatari jet controversy highlights ongoing debates about government ethics, financial transparency, and the potential for foreign influence, promising a thorough investigation that could have lasting implications for future administrations. As Washington watches, the outcomes of these directives, probes, and meetings will undoubtedly shape the political landscape and define the legacy of the current administration. In a significant diplomatic development that has sent ripples across the geopolitical landscape, U.S. President Donald Trump has successfully brokered a peace agreement between long-standing rivals Azerbaijan and Armenia. The landmark deal, signed on Friday, August 8, 2025 at the White House, aims to boost bilateral economic ties and pave the way for a full normalization of relations, marking a potentially transformative moment for the volatile South Caucasus region. The agreement, which saw Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan shake hands under the watchful eye of President Trump, seeks to put an end to decades of animosity. The two nations have been at odds since the late 1980s over Nagorno-Karabakh, an Azerbaijani region historically populated by ethnic Armenians, which Azerbaijan regained full control of in 2023, leading to the exodus of nearly all 100,000 ethnic Armenians to Armenia. President Trump hailed the accord, stating, "It's a long time, 35 years, they fought and now they're friends, and they're going to be friends for a long time." Both leaders praised Trump's personal engagement with President Aliyev, noting within several months he managed to put an end to conflicts in Asia and Africa. And now in South Caucasus, what we could not achieve for more than 30 years. Prime Minister Pashinyan added that the breakthrough would simply not have been possible without President Trump's personal engagement and his resolute commitment to peace. Both leaders indicated they would nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Crucially, the agreement extends beyond mere cessation of hostilities, committing both countries to open diplomatic relations and respect each other's territorial integrity. A key economic component of the deal grants the U.S. exclusive development rights to a strategic transit corridor through the South Caucasus. Dubbed the Trump route for international peace and prosperity, this corridor is expected to facilitate greater exports of energy and other resources, drawing interest from 9 companies, including 3 U.S. firms, according to U.S. officials. Separate bilateral deals were also signed to expand cooperation on energy trade and technology, including artificial intelligence. Furthermore, restrictions on defense cooperation between Azerbaijan and the United States have been lifted, a move that could potentially concern Moscow. The implications of this peace deal are far-reaching, particularly for Russia, which views the South Caucasus as within its traditional sphere of influence. Experts suggest that Moscow is likely to be irritated by its exclusion from the agreement and the significant U.S. role in the new transit corridor. Tina Dalbea, an associate fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, highlighted this, noting now the fact that Armenians are shaking hands with Azerbaijanis and they are talking about U.S. involvement in this corridor. This is huge for Russia. Beyond geopolitical shifts, the agreement is also seen as a tool to bolster Western efforts against sanctions evasion. Brett Erickson, a sanctions expert and advisor to Loyola University's Chicago School of Law, observed, "The Caucasus has been a blind spot in sanctions policy. A formal peace creates a platform for the West to engage Armenia and Azerbaijan, to shut down the evasion pipelines." Iran, a neighboring power, welcomed the agreement as an important step toward lasting regional peace, but cautiously warned against any foreign intervention near its borders that could undermine the region's security and lasting stability. This latest diplomatic success adds to President Trump's efforts to portray himself as a global peacemaker during the initial months of his second term. The White House credits him with brokering a series of other peace agreements, including ceasefires between Cambodia and Thailand, deals between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia and Serbia and Kosovo, in addition to the Abraham Accords. However, his administration has yet to resolve the 3-1/2-year-old conflict in Ukraine or the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Trump announced he would meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15 to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Despite the celebratory tone, challenges and questions remain. Olesya Vartanyan, an independent regional expert, cautioned that while the deal adds predictability, its long-term prospects hinge on sustained U.S. engagement given the region's history of failed negotiations and violent escalations. Without proper and continued U.S. involvement, the issue will likely get deadlocked again, increasing the chances of renewed tensions, she stated. Additionally, human rights organizations have voiced concerns. Daphne Panayotatos of Freedom now urged the Trump administration to leverage the meeting with President Aliyev to demand the release of some 375 political prisoners reportedly held in Azerbaijan, an oil-producing nation that has consistently rejected Western criticism of its human rights record as unacceptable interference. As the dust settles on this significant diplomatic achievement, the world watches to see if this U.S.-brokered peace can truly transform the South Caucasus into a region of lasting stability and economic prosperity, or if it merely marks a new chapter in a complex geopolitical narrative that will demand continued high-stakes engagement from global powers. The coming months will reveal the true durability of this accord and its broader implications for regional security and international relations.